Oh, apron. I feel naked without my apron. So we're gonna do the orange and herb conserve, which is an item that we use often on our charcuterie plate at Chestnut. I'm Joe Scully, the chef owner of Chestnut, and this is also a thing that we really like to make at my house for Christmas gifts for our friends and family. And that's what this little mason jar is about. So to give you an idea how this works, essentially what you're doing is you're making an orange marmalade without using any pectin or any other additions. So what you do is, in this case, you start out with, well, we actually have 5 navel oranges that we've pre-cut, which are way over here. Let me go get them. And I'm just gonna demo to you how you might cut them yourself. So what I do is I just take them yourself. So what I do is I just take the top part and discard that, just slice through very thinly, as thin as you possibly can, half moons. And I do have an admission to make. We use a commercial slicer for this at our operation, but this is fine to do it by hand. Just take your time, and you can see that I have a lot of money invested in my knife, which is something I would strongly suggest to anybody who's serious about cooking. So basically, you just put all that in there. I won't bore you with doing the rest of these, just to give you an idea. So then what you do is you basically combine everything in a pot, all right? As you can see, this is a stainless steel pot, which is an important part of that because you don't want to use anything but stainless steel. If you use aluminum, it will react and discolor everything. So you put that in there. In this case, we use a cup of orange juice, which this is about 10 ounces, 12 ounces, so just a little bit of orange juice to get things going. Interesting grouping of seasonings. You have ground ginger, cloves, cayenne, and then we use salt and pepper mix for this, which is white pepper and salt, which is kosher salt. And I just put a little in to get started, and you may need to adjust that at the end. Then you also add 2 cups of sugar for every 5 oranges. And you might say to yourself, gee, that's a lot of sugar, but yeah, it's a preserve. And you also need an awful lot of sugar to offset the tartness, because this is one of the few recipes where you'll use both the rind and the meat of the orange. Essentially, just put that on the stove. Also calls for a cinnamon stick, so throw that in there as well, and bring that to a boil. And you want to keep it moving so as to have it not stick to the bottom of the pan in the initial heating. And what'll happen is all the liquid will come out of the oranges, the sugar will liquefy, and it'll become really a soupy mass. And then you basically set about simmering it for a really long time. This could simmer for as much as 2 hours, okay? And let me just grab a tasting spoon just to show you guys how this might work. You can see that it's a really thick mix, and it's got a great look, in my opinion. It gets a little darker, and that's okay. That might be a little bit darker than your batch. I would say it got a little bit caramelized on the bottom of the pan, which doesn't hurt it initially, but you don't want to let it caramelize too much. Then what you want to do at the very end, when you pull it off and it gets down to this viscous, thick, preserve-like consistency, is you want to take some fresh tarragon, and it calls for half a cup, which is an awful lot of tarragon. But it really adds a really elegant flavor. Tarragon has a kind of a licoricey flavor to it. So, and the way you do it, you just sort of pull it off the stem, and the stem in tarragon is a little tough, so you don't want to just mix it in there, but just pull those leaves off, and then you can just rough chop that and add it in at the very end. We do an almond-crusted brie, kind of a fritter, that we serve with this that's really just wonderful. So that would be something that you could do. And you could just mix this in at the very end. Get this up to a simmer, let it simmer for a long time, and it's as simple as that. I would say that this, when you put it into the mason jars, you don't really want to say to people this is a canned item, because it's not. This is, I would say this has about a 2 to 3 week shelf life. And you could can them if that's the kind of thing you want to do, but that's a whole different process. So there's your orange and herb conserve. Enjoy.